The coalition of northern groups, CNG, Kaduna State Chapter, in collaboration with civil society organizations and critical stakeholders, have opposed the tax reform bills being pushed by the federal government. They've made their intention known at a town hall meeting convened in Kaduna to discuss the bills, even as they called for the reduction of the value-added tax to 3% instead of the proposed 15%. A town hall brought together a cross-section of policymakers, academics, civil society actors, community leaders, youth groups, and concerned citizens to deliberate on the implications of the proposed tax reform bills. Participants expressed profound concerns over the potential socio-economic consequences of the reforms, highlighting the heavy burden they may impose on already struggling citizens and the businesses in the region. Join us to discuss this. We're joined by economic analyst Olusesan Okunade. One welcome to you, Olusesan. Thank you very much for joining us on the news.
Good afternoon, and let me say Happy New Year to you and all our viewers across the globe.
Happy New Year, Mr. Okunade. Now, how will the proposed 3% VAT reduction impact the overall fiscal revenue projections under the tax reform bill? And I mean, is it something that could happen? Is it a realistic type of proposal?
Thank you very much. I read and I listened to the proposal made by the Northern Coalition on the new tax reform bills, stating that we should have reduction from the current rate of 7.5 to 3% as against the increase that was proposed by the Fiscal and Commission that are currently working on that particular thing. We have to state that we first need to look at the global best practice and the standard rate that is obtainable globally. If you look to Europe, you discover that what is being charged on this value-added tax, because it's not peculiar to our country, is an average of between 17 to 27% across the globe there. By statistics, you go to Hungary, you see about 27%. In Croatia, you have about 25%. In Finland, about 25% in Greece. And when you even go to the Asian country, you have as much as 18 to 20%. And it will sound a bit ridiculous to hear that value added, because you need to have understanding of the VAT that we're talking about. It's about paying for value, extra value that you've actually carried out. And don't forget that the fiscal policy team has gone as far as exclude certain services or goods that they feel will impact on the common man, so that we can have equity, which is the basis of taxation for everybody. So when you come to say that extra value being contributed by a certain set of people should be reduced for every reason, I think they need to come up with the justification for having such reduction as against best practice that is obtainable globally.
And so this leads me to my next question. I mean, the Northern Group, they had a town hall, and this is the communique they came out with. As we speak, Nigeria has some of the lowest tax to GDP ratio in the world, and that's why the presidency has embarked on this tax reform bill. Are these Northern Groups proposing an alternative form of revenue? Is there any way the government can, shore up its revenue purse without this tax reforms, or we have to go this way according to global best practices, like you mentioned?
Yeah, well, to the best of my knowledge, taxation is one of the major obligations that government can use in generating revenue. Other areas are just addendum, maybe the ones that you get from the natural resources that you have. But when you talk of taxation, it's an obligation on the part of individual on income that is being earned or on the services being provided by corporate organization. When you come to the issue of value-added tax, you discover that it's another way to balance the act of taking more from those that have, which is one of the canon of taxation. So for me, if you're asking them to reduce this particular thing, it established the fact of some of the things people have alluded to, that that region seems not to have interest in payment of tax, but possibly have access to free things that are actually available. If the revenue is not there, I doubt we expect the government to move. I think area where we should concentrate more, if we have this tax reform, being signed into law, is to see how we monitor the activities of the revenue being generated in fulfilling the social contract that the country is entrenched to carry out, as established in the Constitution. I mean, subsection 14, subsection 2, talks about the welfare of the citizen. So rather than some of these things go into few ends, how can we have a coverage of it going into satisfying the things that an average citizen is required to enjoy in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure, health-wise, in terms of road, in terms of even the telecommunication that aids good success of education. So rather than reducing it, we should move in best practice. Are we saying that those other same clients, the Europe, the Asians, that charge as much as 20-something percent, do not understand the need and the importance of this? I think it's just a sheer way, I would say, of ignorance, not having deeper understanding of what it entails, that is actually bringing this suggestion. Because if the government refuses to have enough revenue for them to generate to take care of some of the expenses, then everybody will pay for the price. But I feel that if we are able to follow through this tax reform, areas of concentration should be that we monitor some of the revenue being generated and judiciously used in building infrastructure and seeing through that every citizen benefits from the largesse of the natural resources that we are endowed with in the nation.
Now, finally, before I let you go, Mr. Okunade, we've seen the federal government has been lobbying and trying to educate Nigerians on the advantages of this tax reform bill. And just today, as reported, this northern group has even gone as far as asking for 3% in reduction of the VAT. If you were in the position of the government, how would you, what would you do to make Nigerians buy in, and how does this affect national tax compliance rates and enforcement mechanisms?
Yeah, well, I think the area I will concentrate more is to look for a way to bridge the trust gap. You see, the reason why some of these agitation are coming up is there is a serious trust gap between the citizen and the government, and they seems not to enjoy the basic amenities that is expected to be provided for by the government. Just like
it's part of what you mentioned as the failure of the social contract and also monitoring of the revenue that has been generated from tax in the past, I believe.
Yeah, I believe the area where we need to concentrate more to actually have a buy-in is to reduce the trust gap by fulfilling the social contract that is expected of us. I will always make reference to why some of us who are growing up, we have access to basic free education at the state level, and that gives the platform at which a lot of people have access to that education. But you ask yourself today, what is the contribution of the government in fulfilling this aspect to education-wise? We have access to primary health facilities in your localities. You can have access. A lot of people don't patronize general hospital, not to even talk of private hospital that are entrenched in. These are part of the gaps and the trust deficit that the citizens have seen. And that's an area that the federal government needs to work on, so that when people see value for what they are actually contributing by paying their taxes, definitely they will be encouraged to do that, and compliance level will increase the more.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olusesan Okunade, for your insights on the subject. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and I wish you a lovely weekend.
Thank you.